Good morning. It's Unsecurity Podcast, episode 168. I'm Brad Nye, and with me, as always, is Evan. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, man. I'm going to fight a dog at the same time we're going to do the podcast.
Well, gotta have some fun.
Yeah, she's going at it right now, so we're good.
I locked my dogs up in the kennel because one of them's just super loud.
My wife is down in Mexico, so my wife left me alone to my own devices, and so things just aren't right around here, and the dog is fighting me. But we're good.
Dogs can tell that type of thing. So I know we're kind of tight on time this morning, so we'll just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
So the topic we're going to talk about today is, with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, what do we expect to see from a cybersecurity perspective? And not political in any way. Just what can we expect? What do we think is going to happen? And we've already seen with Conti saying that they'll retaliate against anybody that goes against Russia, and then Anonymous is leaking Conti's internal communications for like 13 months.
Yeah, Conti should maybe work on their own security, huh?
Right. Well, apparently, from what I've seen, it's an insider. It was a member of Conti that is Ukrainian sympathizer. For sure. But, the other thing we're seeing is I've seen reports of GPS being messed around with around the airspace and borders and stuff to mess with planes. So, what do we expect? More of the same?
Well, the thing is, I think, the Conti thing and having an insider and the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine, they all look the same, right? I mean, that was one of the things I've heard numerous times by, the Russian side is, it's like the Ukrainians look the same as the Russians, right?
Yeah.
And, and I think there's a parallel there with, cybersecurity, who do you trust? You know what I mean? We sort of look the same. I mean, even within Conti, you had your own sympathizers. And so, who's who and who's on which side, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys.
Right.
I think now is, as good a time as any, probably better than any, to be more skeptical than ever about everything.
Right. Yeah. I think it goes back to what we've talked about, situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the malicious actors take advantage of major global events to, try and cause chaos, get money.
Mm-hmm. I had a good talk yesterday with a bunch of good talks yesterday, but one was with a really, really, really large financial services company, and we were talking about kind of the same thing. I can only control what I can control, right? I have a circle of influence, and I can't worry about, as much as it's easier said than done. I can't worry about what others are doing. I can keep preaching the same things, the same fundamentals, the same best practices that applied 30 years ago are the same best practices and the same things today. So my advice to anybody is, this should be another one of those wake-up calls to be like, all right, let's double check my own stuff. Let's take S2Me and do it at home. Let's take S2Me and give it to my mother, my grandmother. Because yes, there will be additional attacks, but they're not going to be attacks we haven't seen before. You know what I mean? It's the same attack vectors.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. People have been asking, and FBI last week dropped a flash alert for Ragnar malware that's coming back, and some new IOCs, and it's like, well, yeah, it's the same as it. I mean,
the same as it ever was. What was that? What was that? That song? Same as it ever was. Same as it ever. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it offhand.
That's our industry, right there. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was.
Yep.
You know, I think one surprise for me though is I expected more, and so it hasn't been as noisy as I would have expected when you've got a country as cyber powerful as Russia is.
Yeah, I almost
Or at
wonder if
least
there's some,
alleges to be, you know, maybe.
yeah. Well, you kind of wonder if they're holding that back, right?
Why? Yeah, I don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like maybe they've been as organized as people thought. So maybe they weren't expecting to need to do that type of thing.
Yeah, you know, that's the crazy thing about behind the scenes. I read this morning that Putin fired like a whole bunch of people, high ups in his own government, in the military and in the intelligence services, for whatever reason. You can only speculate, right?
Yeah. Well,
but I wonder,
basically cut off.
well, and I wonder what the quality of information he had really was when he made the decision that he made. Did he think that he was a lot more capable? Did he think that the resistance was going to be a lot less? Or is this all part of the original plan to begin with? I mean, it's all speculation.
Right. I've read a bunch of stuff about it that said, their corruption and, siphoning off embezzlement is so common over there. He spent, $500 billion over the last X amount of years thinking he was getting it, and people just were siphoning off the money and not doing what was expected. So he didn't, and nobody's going to tell him what's going on. Right?
I know, right? Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And part of it too is, you had Lumen and, oh my gosh, what's the other big backbone? Oh my gosh, I can't.
Didn't it used to be level 3? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. Whoever that is now, I can't think of the name offhand.
I don't know either.
But those two cutting off access was like 2 of the 5 backbones connecting Russia to the rest of the world.
Right.
So
right.
now those were like, as far as I know, those were the 2 biggest. So that makes it a lot more difficult for potentially those cyber criminals to make those attacks.
Right.
Start filtering down where they can go and what they can do. Makes it easier to block them.
Yeah, I think so. You know what I mean? I would love to see. I know there's been talk too about building another internet. I know that Bruce Schneier and some others have been working on something like that. Like almost like a parallel internet. So you have the chaos one that we have now, and then you have another one that's built with security built in, where you don't have anonymous proxies all over the place, because people don't realize. I think normal, non-security people don't realize how easy it is to bypass so many of those blocks. Right? I go through anonymous proxies in various countries, and I'm a Russian attacker who appears like I'm coming from your neighbor, but I'm actually coming from Russia. You know what I mean? I've proxied and routed my traffic through. But, those are highly sophisticated attacks, and those aren't going to be the ones that are going to affect you and me at home. I think where I'm most concerned is, critical infrastructure, because we've just kicked the can down the road and kicked the can down the road and kicked the can down the road. And it's like, when are we finally going to do something? And I know people say, well, we are doing something. And it's like, no, we're not en masse, not on scale. No. When you take just water treatment facilities, just take water, right? Not water treatment, but water facilities, right? Public water things. 160,000 of those in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what number are exposed, but It's a huge number.
Most is my
Right?
guess. I mean, even if it's half of them, that's a huge number.
Right, right. And so now those crazy people that, like I have neighbors who are, I don't know if I don't know if they're crazy anymore, who were those preppers,
Mm-hmm.
And so in their basement, they've got like, I don't know,
The
thousand gallons of water. And, now I'm thinking, well, okay, I'm going to your house.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I think what was disappointing is how reactive that the critical infrastructure has been, right? It was the Colonial Pipeline that really started to trigger like these requirements for, hey, you should probably be doing these things. And it's like, well, no, they should have been doing those things a long time ago.
Right. And and one of the sad things is we're not getting, because I've had some really good discussions in the last couple of weeks with, people, and, they have ideas, right? We have ideas, and one of them was just kind of outlandish. It would probably work, but my answer was, well, do it then, execute. Because it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to actually do something about it.
Right.
And I think some of the most powerful security people in our industry have always been powerful security people in our industry, right? You know the big names, and
Right.
and I'm not going to mention them here. And now they put together a cybersecurity advisory panel. Dart Tangent is leading it, right? And it's like, okay. I mean, are you going to do anything? Because here's what I would do, right? I mean, and I had a good talk with Oscar about this too, because he's putting together a free service, and I was like, man,
Yep.
we got to be able to scale this like to 160,000.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you do that? And I'm like, what if we just scanned for all open logins, and the ones that we found, we either turn them off or secure them with multi-factor authentication as a start.
Yeah.
That's a launch pad, right?
Well, and think about the risk goes down exponentially just doing that.
And we can scale that. I can have high schoolers do that. I can script an Nmap.
Right.
Say, here, run this. And then contact them for everything that's got a login.
Yeah.
And there's open source, open source multi-factor authentication. We don't have to even spend money.
Well, and question is, does it even need to be open to the internet? Right?
Probably not.
One of the big things that came out last week was, did you see that ServiceNow news article? 70% of ServiceNow is misconfigured and open to the internet. Why do you need your ticketing system? It's the same thing that we're seeing, over and over and over.
Right. Yeah, so I think if I was, and I would take that same approach at, at home or at the business that I work at. What's my attack surface look like? What do I look like to the attacker? Mm-hmm. What are their ways in? Because I think you can do so much if you just learned how to use a firewall the right way, right? Mm-hmm. So we lock down anything that shouldn't be exposed on the way in, and then egress, we lock down everything that shouldn't be talking outbound. So i.e. your ServiceNow things, why are they talking on the internet? They don't need to. Shut that down.
Right. Yeah. I've been working with Oscar on that. And I have a blog post that I've kind of put together, and we're working on a checklist. And, reading, it's like, this is the absolute basics, people. Come on.
It doesn't cost you a dime. You already have the equipment. Right. You just got to learn how to use it right.
Right. Yeah. Do a scan. There's free tools to scan your IPs and see what's open. Just scan for the basics.
Right.
Why do you have FTP open? Do you need that? Right?
Nope. Or 3389 or LDAP or 23, 22, on and on. 1433 is still, out there a lot.
Yeah.
A direct connection to your database, for crying out loud.
Right. Right. Why does your SQL Server need to be publicly available? There's no, I can't, I mean, I'm sure that people have a reason, but I can't imagine how they validate that or justify it.
Well, and even if you had a reason, you would still have, some mitigating controls so that you couldn't connect to that port and I couldn't connect to that port, something.
Well, you'd think.
Yeah, right? So, go ahead. There you go.
I was going to say, well, as prolific as VPN is now and how easy it is, why not just have only email a little bit, only DNS from your primary internal DNS server. That's all, only the minimum needed.
Well, and one of the things with us in our industry is, that one of the things I hate about us actually is how we make things so damn complicated for people. You know what I mean? We talk about it like it's really easy, but, yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine from the Carolina Cyber Center, and he's a security guy, and he was trying to set up multi-factor authentication in PayPal. And he asked me, he's like, do you use PayPal? I'm like, no, I don't use PayPal. I'm not really allowed to have money, So, no, I don't have PayPal. And he's like, so he was telling me his experience in trying to set up multi-factor authentication on PayPal. And I was like, holy crap, man, if you couldn't figure that out, how would just the everyday person ever figure that out? And meanwhile, we're beating them up, multi-factor, and you can't.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. I think, but that's a difference between securing your company and consumer products, right? Like, yeah, as a consumer, we need to make this easier.
Oh my gosh, right? You can't get mad at the user when you're the one that gave them the damn tool, in the first place.
Right, but from a business perspective, I would say I would lock down, hey, the only way you're getting into the network is via VPN.
Right. Yeah, and if you wanted to start with, like, I know that, our marketing, not ours, but the industry, the money grab is alive and well. It's zero trust.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a great place for you to start with zero trust. Why don't you zero trust your firewall?
Right. Yeah, it's not going to cost you anything. You don't have to buy any new blinky lights or...
And you could probably get it done in a week, depending on, what the size of your environment is.
Well, and, one of the pieces of advice that I wrote for the blog post is identify your critical systems.
Yeah.
Put just do Wireshark on them. What is communicating out? Okay. Identify those. Are those legitimate? Do they need to go out? And then lock everything else down. Only allow what needs to happen.
Right.
Right? Like, why in the world would you let your domain controllers browse the web?
Right.
SMTP. Right? Like, no way.
Well, and that's the thing. I think we have such a, I think partially laziness, partially ignorance, where people, on the IT side or the, the information security side, they don't know how to do these things correctly. And then you also have executive management who just continually asks for more and more and more and never gives you the time to do things correctly.
That's probably the biggest issue is not funding it properly, right? How much of the time do you hear security and IT is a money sink? It's a cost center. You just can't think that way anymore.
No, totally, man. Well, and so in terms of like Ukraine and Russia and the United States, there's a lot of players on that global stage, right? You've got certainly Ukraine, Russia, UK's got some serious capabilities. Israel,
right?
They're they're pretty out there. And then on the other side, you've got, and even Australia's got some. Canada, by the way, it's got some chops. But so Russia, I would say North Korea, Iran, China, of course.
Yeah, Russia and China kind of partnering right now.
And China, I don't give a lot of credit for because they don't seem to be very creative. They're just kind of like, I mean, Russia's the one that I would be the most concerned about prior to this, but now I'm sort of questioning whether they're capable. I don't know. I don't.
It's definitely opened a lot more questions than have been answered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think you start with what we do and what I do is start with my own stuff, right? I'm trying to secure my own things and the people that I serve. Be prepared. Have your incident response plan. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's critical. What are you going to do if you run out of water?
Yeah. Where
are you going? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if the electricity goes out? What are you going to do if, the sewer doesn't work anymore? I mean, you just got to plan these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, we need to be a little bit more aware of what those risks to our infrastructure are until we get them better protected.
For sure. Well, I think, just really from, I've spent a lot of time in Mexico, obviously, lately. I think one of the things about Americans is we take a lot of things for granted. And this isn't political by any means. I know people who are the opposite of me politically, and they also take things for granted. We get up in the morning and we turn on the light. It always works. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hot water and clean water.
I'm concerned about what's going to happen when that doesn't work. Are people going to panic? Are people going to freak out? Are people going to grab their guns and start shooting things? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. That's more concerning to me than I think anything else.
Yeah, it's that kind of almost it's not really fear about the unknown, but it's that, it is kind of this uncertainty of what happens if everything stops working.
Right. Well, in the federal government, their job, has always been to protect the citizens. And I think, part of that will be if these attacks do come to fruition. Because here's the thing: we know what the defense looks. We know what our own defense looks like, right? And we know that it's like, man, it'd be really easy. And we know a little bit about the capabilities of the offense. The Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians. So I don't know. You try to logic your way through this, and like, why haven't they done something? And the only thing I can come up with is we are also in theirs.
It's that kind of the mutually assured destruction, right? The nuclear, topic. It's like, hey, if you go after us, we're gonna just. I mean, they're already shut down from the majority of the world. Let's close them off. Let's finish the job. And I don't think anybody wants to do that, but that would be the threat.
Well, and that's the way wars are won, though. I mean, you fight a battle and it's brutal and it's ugly and people die. Nobody likes any of that stuff. I mean, obviously some people do, but the thing about war is it's ruthless, right? Your opponent is ruthless. They go for the throat. That means you have to go for the throat, whether you want to or not.
Right.
It's going to be either you or them. And talk to, all those, young soldiers who fought in World War II, or those young soldiers who fought in, in Vietnam. They were killing. These aren't people that would normally kill,
right?
But they're looking down the barrel of a gun, and they know that if I don't kill this person, they're going to kill me.
Right. Yeah, that's a very difficult. I can't. How do you? Yeah.
But that's how it is in cyberspace too, right? I mean, you're like, either you're in this standoff, or if it's go, it's go, and you got to go for the. I mean, they kill you or you kill them. It's up to us.
Yeah, yeah. I think probably the biggest point as to why, it's gonna. Do we? Yeah. Who does more damage quicker?
Right. Yep. And I'm going to be in Mexico then, and you can come down and visit with me.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, man. I gotta run. I gotta get my daughter to school.
Yeah, take a quick, short podcast today. So
25 minutes, not so bad.
No. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will
shout outs. We got time
shout
for that.
Oh yeah. Choose. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to our marketing team at FRSecure. I wrote a blog post this morning about, or not a blog post, a LinkedIn post about the CISP mentor program.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just, I don't think there's not another marketing team in this entire industry who works with as much integrity as this one does.
Oh yeah, I love working with them. They bounce stuff off us all the time to make sure that they're doing it right.
Yeah, and they don't, like so many others in our industry who just sell snake oil. These guys and gals are 100% integrity, and I love it. So shout out to them.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and second that.
Cool.
Working with them, I've been working with them a bit more, and they've always been fun to work with. And yeah, like you said, they do things right. They bought into the mission.
Yeah.
Which, from a marketing perspective, probably isn't the easiest way to go about it.
No, man. It's like winning a boxing match with your arms tied behind your back, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
All right, brother. All right. Take care.
See you
next week.
Next week.
All right.